For as long as I can remember, the second Sunday of June was the worst day of my year. My birthday. It wasn't a day I was forgotten. It was a day I was deliberately erased. I can still close my eyes and feel it. The way the air in our Connecticut mansion would grow thick with the smell of seared scallops and expensive perfume and the sound of laughter that was never for me. My own birthday would pass in a deafening, painful silence. No cake, no cards, certainly no happy birthday. From the people who were supposed to love me, all of it. Every bit of love, every ounce of attention, every single lavish decoration was reserved for my golden brother, Leo. For 24 years, I was a ghost in my own home, a quiet, polite, invisible ghost. But this year, the ghost decided to haunt them. I didn't just want to remind them they'd forgotten me. I wanted to carve that knowledge into them. I wanted to make them wish they had never been born. What started as a quiet, aching loneliness in a little girl's heart. It festered. It grew cold and hard and calculating. It became a blueprint for a revenge so perfect, so devastating, it would shatter their perfect, polished world into a million irreparable pieces. This is my story. The story of how the invisible daughter became the architect of their ruin. You can call it revenge. I call it justice. Let me paint you a picture of my family, draped in old money and fueled by new arrogance. My father, the powerful corporate titan. My mother, the flawless socialite, curator of our family's pristine image. And Leo, the heir apparent, the sun around which their entire universe revolved. And me? Ilara. I was a footnote, a smudge on the portrait of their perfect life. But let me tell you something about a footnote. We're always watching. We see everything, and I was learning. I was waiting for the perfect moment to find that single, loose thread and pull until their entire world unraveled. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to scream. I had something far more powerful. I had a secret, a truth buried so deep in our family's past that they thought it was gone forever. And I had the patience to wait for the one day their guard would be completely down. The day of Leo's magnificent annual birthday party. What was the secret? What ugly truth did the forgotten daughter dig up from the foundations of this beautiful mansion? And what exactly did I plan for that night? A public act of revenge so shocking. It wouldn't just bankrupt their bank accounts, but also their reputations, their pride, and every single thing they thought made them better than me. If you think you know a story about revenge, you're wrong. This one ends with a microphone in my hand, a stunned crowd of the most powerful people in the state, and a truth so brutal, it echoes in this town to this day. So tell me, do you think I went too far? Was my justice justified? Let me know in the comments. But before you decide, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because you need to hear every last detail of what I did next. Trust me, this is one story you will not forget. My name is Ilara Vance, and for 24 years, I was the best-kept secret of one of Greenwich, Connecticut's most illustrious families. To the outside world, we were the picture of old money perfection. Our life was a series of glossy magazine features. Philanthropist Arthur Vance and his beautiful family, or Leo Vance following in his father's Wall Street footsteps. I was always there in the background of those photos. The daughter, the quiet one, the afterthought. Our world was one of manicured hedges, gated driveways, and silent, sprawling mansions overlooking the Long Island Sound. My father, Arthur Vance, wasn't just wealthy, he was a titan. The founder of Vance Capital, a hedge fund, so powerful that its movements could shift markets. He lived and breathed cold, hard numbers. And his love, I learned early on, was a transaction. It was awarded based on performance, on the value you brought to the family's portfolio. My mother, Eleanor, was his perfect counterpart. A former ballet dancer, she had traded the stage for the social circuit, curating our family's image with the precision of a museum director. Her life was a never-ending performance of charity galas, luncheons, and maintaining a flawless, frosty elegance. And then there was Leo. My older brother is 2 years older. The golden child, the heir apparent, the sun around which my parents' universe unquestionably orbited. Leo wasn't just loved, he was celebrated. Every mediocre report card was framed. Every petty schoolyard achievement was treated like a Nobel Prize. He was groomed from birth to step into my father's empire, and he absorbed their arrogance like a sponge, learning to look at me with the same dismissive glance they had perfected. So, where did that leave me? Alara Vance, the ghost in the gilded cage. My status in that house was that of a polite inconvenience. I had a trust fund? Yes. A generous one, meant to ensure I never had to work and thus never risk tarnishing the family name with a common job. But it came with strings so tight they could choke. I lived in the family mansion, in a beautifully decorated but lonely wing surrounded by everything money could buy and absolutely nothing that mattered. I tried once. In my early 20s, I poured my own quiet inheritance into a small art gallery in Soho. It was my passion, my escape. I'd found a dusty, forgotten space and transformed it into something bright and alive, a place that showcased raw, emotional pieces from unknown artists. It was the one thing that was truly mine. But to my family, it was a hobby, a cute little distraction for the Vance daughter until she married appropriately. They never once visited. My father would ask about its quarterly revenue with a dismissive smirk, while my mother would simply change the subject to Leo's latest deal or the guest list for his upcoming birthday extravaganza. The birthday. The annual event that carved the hole in me a little deeper each year. Leo's birthday party was the social event of the season. A $100,000 affair with ice sculptures, string quartets, and a guest list ripped from the Forbes 100. The entire house would be turned upside down for weeks in preparation. And my birthday, which fell just 7 days before his, it would come and go without a whisper. Not a card, not a cupcake. One year, I made myself a cake. My mother found it in the kitchen, looked at it with something close to pity, and said, "Dear, don't ruin your appetite. The caterers are coming for Leo's tasting tomorrow." The injustice wasn't just in the forgetting. It was in the sheer, lavish excess they poured onto him while offering me crumbs of indifference. It was in the way my father would regale dinner guests with stories of Leo's sharp business mind. A mind that, behind closed doors, was busy spending his allowance on sports cars and bad investments my father always quietly covered. It was in the way my mother would fawn over Leo, adjusting his tie, while she'd barely glance in my direction. For years, I internalized it. I thought it was me, that I wasn't smart enough, impressive enough, or worthy enough of their love. I shrank myself to fit the small space they allotted me. I became quiet, observant, and a collector of moments and details they never knew I saw. I saw the cracks in their perfect facade, the whispered arguments about money that my father didn't want anyone to know were missing, the way my mother's smile never quite reached her eyes, the secrets that were so carefully swept under the pristine Persian rugs. And that's when the shift began. The aching loneliness didn't fade. It crystallized. It turned into something cold, hard, and sharp. A plan began to form in the deepest, quietest part of my mind. I wasn't their pathetic, forgotten daughter anymore. I was a sleeper agent in my own home, and I was just waiting for my moment to detonate. I started paying closer attention. I listened to late-night phone calls my father thought were private. I looked through files left carelessly unlocked on a home office desk, and I began to piece together a truth so ugly, so devastating, that it explained everything. It explained the favoritism, the neglect, and the coldness. It was a secret that was the very foundation of our family, and it was about to become the weapon I would use to bring it all crashing down. But that's a story for the next chapter. What do you think I discovered? What truth could possibly justify a lifetime of being erased? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And if you're ready to hear how I turned their own secrets into a weapon, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification. Because the party is about to start, and the guest of honor is finally ready to make a speech they'll never forget. The plan didn't form overnight. It grew like poison ivy, wrapping itself around the foundation of my life until there was nothing left but its dark, intricate design. It began with a simple, almost accidental discovery, one that would become the key to everything. It was a week after yet another forgotten birthday. The mansion was in its usual pre-Leo party uproar. A team of florists was transforming the ballroom into a tropical paradise, the theme chosen to celebrate Leo's exotic investment in a chain of Miami beach clubs. The air was thick with the cloying scent of orchids and entitlement. I was in my father's study, tasked with the meaningless job of fetching a specific bottle of cognac for his important guests. Another errand for the invisible daughter. His laptop was open, an email from his accountant glaring on the screen. I wasn't snooping, not at first, but a name caught my eye. Not his, not Leo's, mine, Elara Vance. It was a statement for a trust fund, but it wasn't my trust fund. The account number was different. The balance was staggering, nearly 10 times the size of mine. And the beneficiary wasn't me. It was listed under EV Holdings. My heart didn't race. It went cold. Still, this was a secret account in my name, but not for me. Why? A cold curiosity, sharper than any emotion I'd felt in years, took over. I memorized the account number. That night, locked in my studio above the garage, my one truly private space, I began to dig. My art gallery had taught me more than just curation. It had taught me resourcefulness and how to find hidden connections. I used every skill I had. What I found in the following weeks was a web of lies so vast it stole the air from my lungs. EV Holdings was a shell company. My father wasn't just hiding money, he was embezzling it. From his own clients, from his own fund, he was funneling millions through this account in my name, using my identity as a shield. If it were ever discovered, I would take the fall. The forgotten daughter, suddenly the mastermind of a massive financial crime. It was the perfect cover. Who would ever believe I was smart enough to pull it off? To them, I was just Elara. Empty. Elara, the cruelty of it was a physical blow. Their neglect wasn't just emotional. It was a calculated risk. They had made me the fall guy for their potential ruin. My entire existence was a liability to be managed, a name to be used and discarded. But that was only the first thread. Pulling on it led me to the second, darker secret, the one that explained everything. Buried in old digital archives of the Greenwich time, I found a society page announcement from 25 years ago. My parents' wedding. I'd seen the photos 100 times. My mother, radiant in lace. My father, stiff in his tuxedo. But this time, I saw what I'd never been told to look for. The date. I did the math, my blood turning to ice. Leo was born a mere 5 months later. The premature baby who weighed a healthy 9 pounds. They'd had to get married. Leo was the reason. He was the salvation of their reputation, the product of a scandal they had desperately covered up with a quick marriage and a lavish lifestyle. I, however, was planned. I was the child they had later, once their fortune was secure and their status was cemented. I was supposed to be the proof that their marriage was real and strong. But instead, I was a constant, living reminder of the obligation they'd been forced into. Every time they looked at me, they didn't see a daughter. They saw the choice they never got to make. Leo was their salvation. I was their sentence. The pieces snapped into place with a soundless, devastating click. The favoritism wasn't just a preference. It was a narrative. They were forever trying to prove that the child born from necessity was the golden one, the worthy one, that their forced hand had been the right one all along. I was the afterthought, the unwanted proof of a stability they never truly felt. The anger that rose in me then wasn't hot. It was glacial, a vast, frozen sea of rage. They had built their perfect life on a foundation of lies, and they had used me as the cornerstone for their deceit. My entire life, my sense of self had been shaped by a story I never knew. The plan ceased to be about a simple, shocking revelation. It became about architecture. I would not just reveal their secrets. I would make them live the experience they had forced on me. I would make them feel invisible. I would erase them. The opportunity arrived. Leo's birthday party, the social event of the season. This year was his 25th, a milestone. My father was set to make a big announcement. Leo was being promoted to Vice President Advanced Capital, a blatant nepotism move they'd dress up as meritocracy. Every powerful, influential person they knew would be there. The press would be there. It was the perfect stage. I began my preparations with a chilling calm. I transferred small, untraceable amounts of money from the EV Holdings shell account, my account, in their eyes, to pay for what I needed. The irony was exquisite. They were funding their own downfall. I hired a discreet tech guy from the city, paying him in cash from an ATM I'd visited miles away. His job was simple: ensure that at a specific time during the party, every screen in the house, the massive LED wall in the ballroom, the televisions in the lounge, even the tablets the waitstaff used, would cut from the slideshow of Leo's glorious life to a feed of my choosing. I spent days in my studio compiling the evidence, scanned documents, financial records, the wedding announcement. I didn't need to editorialize. The facts, presented coldly and clearly, would be enough. I edited it all into a sleek, devastating presentation. My masterpiece. The night of the party arrived. The mansion glowed against the night sky, pulsing with music and laughter. I could feel the vibration through the floorboards. I stood at my window, watching the endless stream of luxury cars roll up the drive. I wore a simple black dress I'd bought for myself. My armor. I made my way downstairs. The ballroom was a whirl of diamonds and champagne. I saw my father holding court, clapping Leo on the back. I saw my mother glowing with performative pride. They didn't see me. I was a ghost in a room full of people who looked right through me. I moved through the crowd unseen to the AV booth at the back. It was momentarily empty, the technician doubtless grabbing a drink. My heart was a steady, determined drumbeat in my chest. This was it. I plugged the small drive into the main console. A green light blinked. It was ready. All I had to do was press a single key to initiate the sequence at the precise moment my father took the microphone for his big speech. I turned and leaned against the booth, watching them, my family. In that moment, surrounded by their adoring crowd, they looked invincible, untouchable, a perfect, beautiful lie. And I was the truth, waiting in the shadows. But then, a hand landed on my shoulder. I froze, my blood turning to ice. It was my mother. Her smile was tight, her eyes confused. "Elara, darling, what are you doing back here? You look so pale. Come, let's get you some air. Leo is about to make his speech." She began to gently pull me away from the booth, from the console, from the single key that held their entire fate. Her touch was like a brand. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through my calm. Was this it? Had she seen? Had it all been for nothing? I had a choice to make in that split second. A moral challenge sharper than any knife. Do I pull away? Do I cause a scene right now and run back to press the button? Or do I go with her, play the meek daughter one last time, and wait for another chance that might never come? The entire party held its breath. And so did I. The ghost was finally seen, and it might have just lost its chance to haunt. My mother's hand on my arm was a brand. Her touch, so rare, so falsely concerned, sent a jolt of pure panic through me. For one terrifying second, I was a little girl again, desperate for her approval, terrified of her disapproval. The console, with its glowing green light, seemed a mile away. My entire plan, months in the making, was about to be undone by a single condescending gesture. "You look faint, darling," she said, her voice a masterclass in performative care. "Let's get you away from this dreadful equipment. It's time for your brother's speech." Your brother, not Leo, not his name, your brother. The label that had always defined me in relation to him. That one phrase was the splash of cold water I needed. The panic iced over, replaced by that familiar, glacial calm. I didn't pull away. I didn't stiffen. I let my shoulders slump slightly, adopting the posture of the weak, overwhelmed daughter she believed me to be. "You're right, Mother," I murmured, my voice barely audible over the party's din. "It's a bit much in here." I let her lead me away from the booth, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Every step away from that console felt like a betrayal of myself, but I was playing a longer game now. The technician would return to his post. The moment would be lost. I needed a new plan, and I needed it in the next 60 seconds. We weaved through the crowd. She was steering me toward a side veranda, away from the spotlight. I saw my father and Leo ascending the few steps to the bandstand, all gleaming smiles and proud puffs of the chest. The master of ceremonies was handing my father the microphone. This was it, the moment of his grand announcement, the moment my family's legend would be cemented, and I was being ushered into the shadows. Again. No, not again. As we passed a waiter holding a tray of champagne flutes, I stumbled. It was a slight, graceful trip, just enough to bump into him. The glasses swayed, clinking together. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I gasped, the picture of clumsiness. In the split second of chaos, as my mother sighed in exasperation and the waiter steadied his tray, I acted. My phone was already in my hand, the screen unlocked. I didn't need the physical console. My tech guy had built in a failsafe. A single prominent button on my screen labeled simply play. My thumb hovered over it. My father's voice boomed through the speakers, dripping with false humility. "Friends, family, esteemed colleagues, thank you for coming to celebrate my son Leo." This was the cue. The entire room's attention was fixed on them. The screens behind them showed a giant smiling photo of Leo. I looked at my mother, who was now focused on the stage, her face a mask of rapturous pride. She had forgotten me already. I pressed the button. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. My father droned on. A young man who has not just met expectations, but has shattered them. Then, a flicker. The giant photo of Leo glitched, distorted, and vanished. The screens went black. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. My father paused, glancing behind him with an annoyed frown, thinking it a technical glitch. Then, my evidence began to play. It wasn't a video of me. There was no angry narration. It was far more surgical than that. It was a silent, devastating slideshow, set to the same soft piano music they used for the family photo montages. The first slide was the email I'd found on my father's computer, the one with the EV Holdings account number, my name, and the staggering illicit balance. The text was magnified and crystal clear. The crowd fell silent. My father's smile vanished. He stared, uncomprehending. A series of financial documents, tracing the flow of embezzled funds from Vance Capital client accounts into the shell company bearing my name. Key figures were circled in bold red. The evidence was undeniable. The silence was now deafening, broken only by the soft, tragic piano music. I saw faces in the crowd, business partners, clients, their expressions shifting from confusion to dawning horror and fury. My father lunged toward the AV booth, but it was too late. The technician was just standing there, shrugging helplessly. The system was locked down remotely, the society page wedding announcement. The date was circled. Then a birth certificate. Leo's, his date of birth, 5 months later. The math was undeniable. A collective, sharp gasp went up from the crowd. The perfect family narrative began to crack audibly. Then came the final blow. A scanned letter from my father's lawyer, dated just a year ago. It outlined a contingency plan. If the embezzlement was ever discovered, the blame was to be funneled to me. It detailed my history of instability and my failed business ventures, and suggested I had orchestrated the entire scheme without their knowledge, using my limited access. They had a legal document, ready to throw me to the wolves. The room erupted, not in noise, but in a wave of stunned, suffocating silence. The illusion was shattered. The gold was peeling off, revealing the rotten lead beneath. I didn't move. I just watched them. My father, pale and trembling, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly. My mother, her hand clutching her pearls, her flawless composure shattered into a million pieces of sheer terror and shame. And Leo, the golden boy, looking confused and small, his big promotion suddenly meant nothing. The spotlight wasn't on them anymore. It was on their sins, projected for everyone to see. They were completely exposed, naked. The crowd wasn't looking at them with admiration anymore. They were looking at them with pity, with disgust, with betrayal. I had taken everything from them. Not their money, not their home. I had taken their identity, their legacy, their precious, perfect reputation. I had made them invisible in a room, full of people, just as they had done to me for 24 years. I finally turned and walked away. No one tried to stop me. No one even saw me. I was a ghost, remember? I walked out of the ballroom, through the grand foyer, and out into the cool night air. The sound of the party was gone, replaced by a ringing silence. Behind me, I left not an explosion, but a crater. A perfect, silent crater, where my family's world used to be. The revenge was complete. It was quiet. It was brutal. and it was utterly, devastatingly just. And as I breathed in the free night air for the first time in my life, I realized the performance was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. I didn't stay to watch the aftermath. I didn't need to. The silence I left behind in that ballroom was more telling than any scream. I walked out the grand front doors of that Connecticut mansion for the last time, the cool night air feeling like a baptism. There were no shouts, no one chasing after me. The destruction I'd wrought was so complete, so internal, that it rendered them incapable of a response. I had not set a fire, I had simply removed the oxygen, and their entire world suffocated on the spot. In the days and weeks that followed, the fallout was as public as I had intended. The story wasn't just family gossip, it was a scandal. Vance Capital founder implicated in massive fraud scheme. Greenwich dynasty crumbles in birthday party expose. The financial regulators descended first, then the prosecutors. The evidence I'd so meticulously compiled was undeniable. My father's empire, built on a foundation of arrogance and lies, was dismantled brick by brick. He pleaded guilty to embezzlement and securities fraud, trading his tailored suits for a prison jumpsuit. The shell company in my name was dissolved, and the funds were returned to their rightful owners. I was cleared of any wrongdoing. The digital trail I'd left made it abundantly clear I was a pawn, a patsy set up to take the fall. My mother, she didn't face charges, but she faced something she perhaps feared more: social annihilation. The woman who lived for her reputation watched it evaporate overnight. The charity boards asked for her resignation. The phone calls stopped. The invitations dried up. She sold the mansion and moved into a modest apartment elsewhere, a ghost of her former self. The perfect image she had spent a lifetime curating was now a permanent exhibit of her own complicity. And Leo, the golden child. His inheritance wasn't just gone, it was toxic. The VP title vanished before he ever got the nameplate. He was left with nothing but the stark reality that his entire life of privilege had been funded by crime and cemented by a lie. The last I heard, he was managing a chain fitness store in another state, a world away from the hedge fund offices he was promised. The sun around which their universe revolved had burned out. As for me, I sold my art gallery. It had served its purpose. It was my training ground, my sanctuary when I needed one. But I didn't need a sanctuary anymore. I used the money from the sale, my own clean money, to start a nonprofit that provides legal aid and financial literacy to victims of white-collar crime, people who, like me, had their lives and identities used without their consent. I found my worth not in their validation, but in my own. My value wasn't assigned by them, it was built by me. But this isn't just a story about a ruined party or a fallen family. This is a story about the price of a soul. For years, I thought my silence was weakness. I thought my compliance was a flaw. I was wrong. My silence was my observation deck. My compliance was my camouflage. And when the time was right, that silence became my most powerful weapon. I didn't scream into a void. I waited until the void was listening, and then I spoke with the cold, hard facts they themselves had written. There's an old American saying, "The truth will set you free." But they never tell you the second part. The truth will set you free. But first, it will shatter everything you thought you knew. It will burn the old world to the ground, and you have to be willing to stand in the ashes and decide what to build anew. My revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about reclaiming me. It was about correcting a story that had been written without my consent. I didn't just reveal their truth. I finally announced my own. So, was it worth it? Watching my family crumble? Seeing my father led away in handcuffs? Knowing I was the architect of it all? There is no satisfaction in it. There is no triumphant cheer. There is only a quiet, solemn peace. The peace of a balanced scale. The peace that comes when the air is finally cleared of a lifetime of lies. The ghost is no longer haunted because the ghost is finally, fully at rest. I didn't get a happy ending. I got a just ending. And sometimes, in a world that often feels deeply unfair, that is the only ending that truly matters. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other people are living in the background of someone else's picture? How many are being quietly erased to preserve a comfortable lie? And at what point does the cost of keeping the peace become too high a price for your own soul? What would you have done in my shoes? Was there another way? Or is some justice so quiet, so personal, that it can only be delivered with the devastating precision of a truth they never saw coming? I'll leave you with that. The microphone is off. The story is told. The comment section, however, is yours.